Hey, it's your favorite bioethicist calling. It's Art Kaplan. Thought I'd contact you in your fortress of solitude there, out in the boonies, to congratulate you on your 500th show. It's hard for me to imagine that you found 500 different themes to talk about to get to show 500, but okay. You seem to be clever. Maybe you could do it. And in all seriousness, congratulations. Hope we get another 500. And you can share that with anybody you want.
Stand up.
And now, Stand Up community subscribers and listeners from around the globe, it's time to Stand Up with Pete Dominick, where we ask the important questions that impact you, your family, and your community. Such as, is this Christmas gift wrapping biodegradable enough to not have to unwrap it? And with tornado warnings in the northern Midwest, does this mean I'll finally get to move into the basement and get going on that kegerator? And now, the podcast host who can't wait to reveal his shed is actually Condor Man's car in disguise, Pete Dominick.
I don't even know who Condor Man is. So, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, Pete. And I love every single introduction and jingle that you have done for the show, and it is definitely in the hundreds. You are the man, and we all love you. That's at PeteCoVO on Twitter. Go check him out. He's always hanging out with us at the Hangouts. And by the way, not doing it tonight. Usually we do it on Thursdays, but doing it tomorrow night. I'll tell you why coming up. But excellent show for you today. I've got 3 guests joining me. Dr. Jason Johnson, who is always solid. And then I've got a young reporter from the 19th to talk about how the pandemic has changed men and dads in so many ways. Such a great article. Hit me really right in the heart. I loved it, and you're going to love my conversation with Chabeli Carrazana, who's on for the first time from the 19th. And then a very special and pretty hilarious conversation with our friend, Professor Eric Segall, who normally, obviously, we talk about constitutional law issues, the Supreme Court. But today we talked about his recent procedure that he had to have done. And it's pretty funny and personal and great. It's a unique and different conversation with Segall, which I think you're going to love. 3 great guests and show number 500 coming up tomorrow. I've asked people to call in and leave a message on a new Stand Up with Pete Dominick hotline, voicemail, messaging service. I don't know what you want to call it, but you can call the number and leave a message as Dr. Arthur Kaplan did, which was really nice. It's been amazing to hear from so many people. I just got done listening to several messages, and many of them are from not only listeners and subscribers, but regular guests on the show. Jared Yates Sexton, Ruth Ben Giat, Dr. Michael Mann, the great Jeff Jarvis left an awesome message, Anousheh Hussain, and I'm going to try to share all of them. I'll definitely post them all in one place. You can hear everybody, but listen to this from the host of Independent Americans and founder of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America organization, Paul Rieckhoff, left me a message. So nice.
Pete Dominick, it's Paul Rieckhoff. Happy 500th show. I can't believe you've knocked out 500 shows already, but you continue to do it with class, with heart, with humor. You are an awesome human being, and you have been vital to so many of us throughout this pandemic, especially. I just want to thank you for all that you do. As someone who has his own show, I know how hard 500 shows must have been. The late nights, the early mornings, the recuts, the technical errors, the noise outside, your crazy-ass neighbor, all that shit did not stand in your way, and I congratulate you on 500. Hope there are hundreds and thousands more, but thank you for all you do for our country and for so many people that rely on you, including myself. Congratulations, man. I hope we can have a 500th party in your shed sometime soon with lots of cool lighting and other accoutrements. You're a true helper, my man. Honored to know you. Congratulations on 500 shows, and congratulations to your amazing audience, some of the coolest and most kind people I've ever met on any show as a regular. I've seen how much they love you and how great they are. So congratulations on 500, man. Here's to many more.
Yes, thank you, Paul. That was so awesome, and lots of listeners also left messages. I'll be dropping them in today. I'll sneak some in, and tomorrow on show number 500 next week. And then I'd love to use the voicemail not to just praise the show, be self-serving to promote what we're doing here together, but, you know, get your take on just about anything, or you got something funny to share, a story, something thoughtful, good news, anything. You can use it for whatever you want. And I really appreciate all those messages. Keep them coming. The number is 209-STAND-UP. That's 209-782-6387. Leave a message. And I will not be hosting the Hangout tonight. I'm going to plan for it on Friday night at some point. Look for the email for the exact time, probably around 8 p.m. But I've got to attend the Board of Education meeting as a citizen, as a member, as a dad, as a parent. And we had two successful, really productive meetings with our assemblyman and state senator this week. And thank you to both of them for joining us, this group of parents that have organized together to try to fight back against what we are really concerned with a lot of the issues that are happening at the school district in our town, and I'm sure in your town as well. So hopefully you're organizing and making a similar effort. Okay, well, I hope that you are doing okay, hanging in there, and finding the joy, finding the light. Send me your vitamin N pictures. By the way, yesterday I was walking out to the shed to sit down with Dr. Jason Johnson, and I actually start talking about this with him in our interview later, but I saw two bald eagles, which I've never seen behind my house here, and they were chasing the red-shouldered hawk, which I've seen many times behind my house. I kind of track that gal or guy. I'm not sure the gender of that hawk. Either way, there were two eagles chasing a hawk yesterday, and I watched them for like 15 minutes. It was amazing. So get out, get yourself some nature, make sure you're taking good care of yourself in all of the different ways that you can. And I do want to remember today, and I got to do this every day, to plug the stand-up dates that I'll be doing with Ophira Eisenberg and Christian Finnegan. January 15th, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. January 16th, that's a Saturday night in Stone Harbor. That's in South Jersey. And then January 22nd, we'll be in Beacon, New York at the Howland Theater. And I'm very excited to be performing with the two of them. And we've almost settled, I think, on a name for what we're going to call it, which should be fun. And they're scheduled at least to join me on tomorrow's show, the Friday show, and we'll talk about it and everything else. But now it's time to get to the news. Thanks for bearing with me through the top here, and thank you for all your well wishes and for listening and supporting and subscribing to the show as well if you haven't already. Please do. And now let's do the news, shall we? It's time for The Last 24. Today's news and show is brought to you by over 800 subscribers, and it's also brought to you by Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your own business. I'll tell you more about it later. Holy shit, the weather is crazy in the Midwest. That's one thing I just want to mention here at the top. Historic windstorm slamming the central United States, along with rare December tornadoes. Wind gusts reached 90 miles an hour in 8 states, with 19 tornadoes reported, along with dust storms and fires. If that's you, you're in the path of any of that, you're dealing with that weather, this extreme conditions, please, great reason to use the hotline. Leave us a message, because Ryan in Kansas, who's been on the show a couple times as a guest, texted me and said, if you get a chance, check in on Kansas. We are in trouble right now. Going to be a long week. I asked him to tell me more. He said 100-mile-an-hour winds mixed with fire. So if you're dealing with that, definitely leave me a message or pop me a message somehow. Half of the lower 48 states enduring a historic and dangerous weather event Wednesday as an extremely powerful storm system swept through the middle of the country, unleashing damaging winds and, in some areas, tornadoes, dust storms, and out-of-control fires, just as we're seeing President Biden in Kentucky today to see with his own eyes the damage that's been done there, and, of course, meet with victims' families and assure them that the federal government is there to help.
I'm amazed. I've been asking my FEMA folks and my Homeland Security, what is the most impressive thing you've seen? I meant in terms. I start off thinking in damage, and they said the way you all come together, the way people just come out of nowhere to help as a community, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what America's supposed to be. There's no red tornadoes or blue tornadoes. There's no red states or blue states when this stuff starts to happen. And I think, at least in my experience, it either brings people together or really knocks them apart. I'm moving you together here.
President Biden also spoke to the community, and he said this, and I have questions about this, but listen.
Better than it was. I promise you, you're going to heal, we're going to recover, you're going to rebuild, you're going to be stronger than you were before, we're going to build back better than it was. And when I come back, I got one beautiful lady and her husband promised me a meal. She's apparently a hell of a cook, so I'm coming back for the meal. So thank you for being here. And to all the families here, keep the faith. We're going to get this done. I promise you, the governor's not walking away, your county judge is not walking away, your congressman's not walking away, no one's walking away. We're in this for the long haul. Thank you very much for your patience.
I hope they do heal and recover and build back better and everything. My questions, I mean, how can the president of the United States, take somebody up on their offer to go to dinner at their house? Is that a thing? I couldn't think of it off the top of my head if that's ever happened in history, because they could poison him. Mr. President, we're so excited to have you. I mean, it's a sweet thing. I'm sure someone did invite him, but we'd love to have you for dinner. Come back when we're better and we've built back better, and we'll make you steak, we'll make you pasta, whatever you like. And then, some assassin comes in and says, I'll kill your whole family if you don't poison him. And then poor lady's got a tough choice to make. Have I watched too many films? Is this... The presidents ever sit down and doesn't a Secret Service agent have to take a bite of it or something? I should know the answer to this. All right, well, let's move on to the other really big important issue, and that is COVID news.
COVID news.
Oh, there's a lot of it, but yesterday I was in the woods with Dr. Zatz. Dr. Zatz and I would go into the woods on Wednesday mornings. We bring our dogs and we walk for an hour, and it's pretty much the best thing. When I got out of his car, he drops me off. He picks me up and drops me off. He's the best guy ever. And when I got out of his car, I wanted to say to him, the best part of my day is over. But I don't want to get too mushy with Dr. Zatz, who's the best pediatrician in town. And he was telling me about one of his daughters who goes to a school in upstate New York. I won't say that's none of your business, but that apparently it shut down because then I read this headline: Omicron spreading rapidly in U.S. could bring punishing wave as soon as January, according to the CDC, and that colleges have been moving exams online as the coronavirus rises and Omicron fears grow. They can't control the off-campus stuff, the parties, the Greek life, and these kids are young and they think they're indestructible, and they think they want certainly for this to be over during their time in college, and it's hard to blame them, but that's why now these schools are shutting down, I think. Anyway, it sucks. But here is Dr. Fauci with some good news yesterday. He said that current vaccines and boosters will sufficiently protect people from the ongoing spread of Omicron. Fauci and his fellow public health officials held a White House press event yesterday to go over the latest data collected by the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
The Omicron variant undoubtedly compromises the effects of a 2-dose mRNA vaccine-induced antibodies and reduces the overall protection. However, as I showed on a prior slide, considerable protection still maintains against severe disease. The early in vitro and clinical studies that I mentioned indicate that boosters reconstitute the antibody titers and enhance the vaccine protection against Omicron. And so finally, our booster vaccine regimens work against Omicron. At this point, there is no need for a variant-specific booster. And so the message remains clear. If you are unvaccinated, get vaccinated, and particularly in the arena of Omicron, if you are fully vaccinated, get your booster shot.
All right, well, I don't know what he said in the first half when he was talking about in vitro and tides and Neptune. I don't know but the second half made sense. Now let's head over to the CDC, where Rochelle Walensky, the director, is noting the Delta variant continues to dominate most COVID cases in the U.S., but Omicron is rapidly catching up, especially in the Northeast. Great.
Although the vast majority of cases continue to be Delta, representing about 96% of cases across the country, the Omicron variant is now estimated to represent about 3% of the cases in the United States. In some areas of the country, the estimates of Omicron are even higher, including in New York and New Jersey, where CDC projects that Omicron could represent about 13% of all cases. In looking at early data on transmissibility of Omicron from other countries, we expect to see the proportion of Omicron cases here in the United States continue to grow in the coming weeks.
All right, well, it's never going to end. It feels like it's never going to end, and I'm not sure how you're dealing with it. I'm not sure how you're handling it. I hope that you've gotten your booster. I'm back to wearing a mask pretty much everywhere inside, where it's been mandated here in New York State, but several counties, including mine, led by our county executive, a guy named Ed Day, who I know a little bit and am not a supporter of, but he is rejecting the mandate. Several other counties are as well. But people, I do notice that a lot of people are wearing them inside suddenly again. Some people, of course, never stop, which is your prerogative, and to try to stay safe and keep others safe. But I know it's hard, folks. It's going to be a long slog through another winter here. But let's stay together by the fire, which is a metaphor for at least this community in the show, and keep each other warm. Keep talking and keep sharing ideas, and I'm not going to stop being optimistic because I am alive. I think James Baldwin said something like that. Finding the joy in every day, and in a great place here in Show 500. So I'm not letting COVID keep me down, and excited that my parents are going to come down for Christmas and that my family's okay right now, and hopefully we will continue to stay safe. And so will you and your family. But I'm just trying to acknowledge I know how much of a drag this is, and you're not alone if you're really having a hard time dealing with it. And I'll check in on you and see where you're at tomorrow night's hangout on Friday night this week. Now let's punch out of COVID news and head over to Fox News, which is in quotes, and my old friend Will Cain putting Dr. Oz through the ringer on the issue of abortion. Dr. Oz, of course, is now running for senator in Pennsylvania, which is bizarre on its face. Dr. Oz does a terrible job answering this, and Twitter and social media was abuzz with how badly he did here. And Will really hung him up real good the way you got to if you're a right-wing Fox News host, I guess.
Exceptions, which I appreciate. What is your position as both a doctor and a senatorial candidate on when life begins? When should we draw the line when abortion is legal?
As a doctor, I appreciate the sanctity of life. And for that reason, I'm strongly pro-life. With the three exceptions I've mentioned, that's how I would vote.
And when does that life begin?
Again, if I'm pro-life, then it's a decision that comes back to the sanctity of when you think life does begin. And I believe it begins when you're in the mother's womb.
When you're in the mother's womb? But that carries you all the way up to 9 months of pregnancy.
No, of course not. Life's already started when you're in your mother's womb. But it's a rat hole to get trapped in the different ways of talking about it. We need, as a nation, to make sure the Constitution is appropriately followed, and people like me, and you may be in the same camp, who are pro-life, have our feelings respected. And this is something that should not be taken away from us by judiciary legislating from the bench.
Yeah, but that's also something that's going to have to be legislated, and that answer is going to have to be given specifically. Listen, I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, that's enough, Will. You got him. You got him real good. Dr. Oz, no one told him how to answer that question. Ooh, that is not going to be good in a Republican primary, is my guess. And here is the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, yesterday giving a terrible answer to a question about whether or not members of Congress should be able to own individual stock, which I just can't even imagine why this is controversial at all.
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review. But if people aren't reporting, they should be.
Why should they be banned?
Because this is a free market, and we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
So the free market argument is bizarre. I mean, the concern, of course, is that as a policymaker, you have insider information on some policy that you're going to pass that's going to affect any number of companies and entire industries. And any insider information is not in any way, shape, or form part of any free market economy that's gaming the system. It's completely unethical behavior to allow government officials to profit from their perks in office by investing in individual stocks. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you're going to profit, but while you're in office, I mean, it's just a terrible answer, I think, that she gave. And if anybody else there wants to argue with me about it, I will fight you. Let's go. Let's talk. Leave a message, email me, whatever, tweet me. Let's do it, because I can't see the argument for this. And I'm not even sure why she said that outside of her own, considerable wealth somehow existing in a portfolio of stocks or something, which I know she's super wealthy, but I don't know. Terrible answer. But here's a good answer. I like this answer. Here's Democrat Ruben Gallego on MSNBC with Lawrence O'Donnell, who asks him about Jim Jordan. If you haven't heard the news, I mean, basically a big news story where they were planning to not certify election without even knowing what the results of the election were. It is crazy what is happening, trying to understand all of this news, and we're going to continue to do it here on this program. But listen to Lawrence O'Donnell on MSNBC last night. He asks Ruben Gallego, a Democratic congressman. I like this guy a lot, a veteran, a real tough guy and a thoughtful guy as well. He asks him about Jim Jordan, and then Ruben Gallego on MSNBC last night lights Jim Jordan on fire.
Very much for joining us tonight, Congressman. Your reaction to the unsurprising revelation that it was Jim Jordan who was the sender of that text urging an illegal act by the vice president.
Yeah, no, I feel like Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca right now. Absolutely not surprised. Look, Jim Jordan's a traitor. He's a traitor of the Constitution of the United States. He has been a traitor of the Constitution of the United States for quite a while. And now we actually have it in text. But we shouldn't be surprised. And why is anybody surprised? We saw it on the floor when they were calling out, Arizona, for example, a place that I represent, and saying that there was fraudulent votes. And they made up lies on the House floor. So how are we surprised right now?
Woo-wee. He really got him good right there. Jim Jordan might be the next Speaker of the House. Very possible. Looking forward. And now let's go to the guy who maybe he'll be president. This is the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. Really triggered me with this because we're hearing this kind of rhetoric at our Board of Education meetings, which is why I'm there to always give an answer to it or confront it. I mean, this is really where we're at in America right now. Ron DeSantis claiming the word equity for himself and telling his audience of followers and supporters that it's code. Equity is code. Here he is.
And they bring a lot of this into those institutions, and they call it equity. Just understand, when you hear equity used, that is just an ability for people to smuggle in their ideology, because we don't need to have these terms.
Yeah, that's why we're in a bad place. They're talking about they're changing language. I saw a few people responding to that. One guy said, equity is a term that runs through our history of jurisprudence. It's insane to demonize the idea of equity. It is. It's not really insane. This is the strategy. I mean, we've been hearing from Ruth Ben-Ghiat and so many, Tim Snyder and so many other experts on this. This is what they do. They are taking language and redefining words that have always been widely agreed upon and demonizing and demagoguing them. And there's more to come, folks. And here's more from Ron DeSantis, by the way.
You think about what MLK stood for. He said he didn't want people judged on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. You listen to some of these people nowadays, they don't talk about that.
And this, by the way, was at his press conference to announce the Stop Woke Act. Stop Wrongs Against Our Kids and Employees Act. And, of course, it's the only part of Martin Luther King's speech or work that they know, that one line. Yeah, listen to the rest of it. But it is effective messaging, and you're going to hear more about it, and you got to organize locally to combat it, to confront it, and to make sure that your Board of Education has people on it that do actually believe in things like voting rights and don't believe in things like fascism and authoritarianism and do believe in support public health experts and science. Those are things that the Board of Education really needs to support, that they do support teaching a wide range of points of view and angles, including on history, but they don't whitewash it. These are very important things that we have to organize and stand up in our own individual communities to do. And I highly recommend, if you haven't done it already, you look into it. There already probably is an existing organization, and you can jump on their Zoom calls. It doesn't take much time. You make a lot of new friends, and it's great. And it gives you a purpose and a drive. All right, well, you know what? I've been talking a lot on today's show, and we're already half hour in. I got 3 guests. Awesome conversation with Dr. Jason Johnson. Hilarious and very personal conversation with Eric Segall about getting catheterized. See, we're getting closer. And for the first time from the 19th, Chabeli Carrazana, talking about how the pandemic has changed dads, but not in that order. I think I'll put it Jason, Chabeli, and then we'll end with Segall. Yeah. But now it's time to get to the rest of the headlines. A news dump of sorts. Hit it, Pete Co.
Neighborhood in Texas, feral pigs begin to romp. There's lots of property damage on today's news dump.
Oh, no, not those feral pigs again. I've heard a lot about them. By the way, to take you behind the scenes, the text messaging conversation between me and Pete Co. He says, I've got your intro and the news dump coming in 15 minutes. I said, no problem. I've barely started with the show. And he said, that's good because I'm still trying to find a good squealing pig sound effect. I can't believe I don't already have one. That's such a funny text. All right, your headlines. Let's start in Chicago, where the Chicago Council on Wednesday voted to pay nearly $3 million to a woman who was handcuffed while naked by police officers during a 2019 raid of her home. And this is why you want law enforcement reform. This is why everybody does. This is why police should want it. Their families should want it. You do not want there to be abuse cases that lead to lawsuits that you have to pay for. Where do you think that money comes from? If police didn't do these kinds of things, then you wouldn't have to pay for them. And that's a problem, and we shouldn't be divided over that, in my opinion. And speaking of bad behavior by police officers, a Texas judge on Wednesday delayed the murder trial of a former police officer charged with fatally shooting a black man through a back window of her home in 2019. Aaron Dean's trial in the killing of a 28-year-old Atiana Jefferson in Fort Worth had been set for January 10th, but it's been postponed because 2 experts were unavailable to testify in January. Now let's head to San Francisco, where apparently, good news. How about this? San Francisco is going to require sick leave for nannies and gardeners. Nannies, house cleaners, gardeners, and other San Francisco domestic workers must be given paid sick leave under a groundbreaking law approved by city leaders this week. Bad news for Pete Co. and his family, because they're gonna take a real financial hit. They have a team of servants there at the Co. home, and all those people are gonna be getting a bump, but the Co's are gonna be taking a hit. Do the right thing, Pete. Pay your servants sick leave. Mr. Co., would you like me to prepare your Murphy bed for bedtime? Write a jingle about that, motherfucker. Okay, moving on. He's going to love that. Congress okayed a bill giving the Capitol Police the power to call the troops, called the National Guard. The Capitol Police Chief is about to gain new authority to request help from the National Guard. The bipartisan bill cleared both chambers by voice vote. Now heads to President Joe Biden's desk, and this, of course, is a response to January 6th insurrection. I don't know how I feel about that on its face. I think it depends on who's in charge of the Capitol Police. I'm going to have to learn more about that one before I decide how I feel. Lord Vader, what should we do about the insurrectionists at the Capitol? You know what I'm getting at. Hey, let's head down to New Zealand, shall we? Where 2 Muslim worshippers who at different times charged towards that horrible gunman back in 2019 to try and stop his massacre were each awarded New Zealand's highest honor, for civilian bravery on Thursday. Both men were credited with helping save others in the 2019 attack at 2 Christchurch mosques in which 51 people were killed. All right, let's come back to Connecticut, where at a school board meeting where things got heated, and it wasn't about COVID requirements or critical race theory. The issue was the mascot. They had changed the mascot from the tomahawk to the Guardians, and I guess that was the dispute, and a guy punched one of the board members, got in his face, and the board member pushed him back a little bit, and the guy just punched him right in the face. And there's 2 videos of it, and I just watched them like 50 times, and I hope that never happens at your Board of Education meeting or mine. Nobody needs to be punching anybody. I think that's a bad idea. Apple stores have temporarily closed. 3 stores in response to rising COVID rates. That's an interesting story. And we lost a legend. I was not really that familiar with her work. I'm always embarrassed when groundbreaking author and educator and activist, I'm not familiar with this person, Bell Hooks. She explored how race, gender, economics, and politics were intertwined, made her one of the most influential thinkers of her time, according to the Associated Press. And now I'm going to go learn all about her and her passing. I saw a lot of people tweeting about her and talking about her, but that happened late last night. I probably would have asked Jason Johnson about her. But finally, Spider-Man No Way Home drops this weekend. They're projecting a massive take at the box office, and we will be contributing to it because Ava and I, my daughter Ava and I, never miss any Marvel Cinema Universe movies or shows, and I'm very excited. We are very excited to see Spider-Man No Way Home on Friday. We will see you there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of today's news dump. 3 great guests coming up, but before that, I've got to tell you about why I love this sound. Because, folks, that means it's time to tell you about Shopify. Did you know that every 28 seconds an entrepreneur like you makes their first sale on Shopify? Shopify unlocks the opportunity for your business to get to more people every day. Shopify is more than a store, an online store. It's a place to connect with your customers. You can drive sales, manage day-to-day business. Shopify instantly lets you accept all major payment methods, has thousands of integrations and third-party apps from on-demand printing to accounting to advanced chatbots and beyond. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility, and Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses. So upstarts, startups like me and this show, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Yeah, that's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Go to shopify.com/standup, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/standup right now. That's shopify.com/standup. Learn more about it by the link in today's show notes. Reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integration and apps like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Shopify.com/standup right now. All right, coming up, I've got Professor Eric Segall, reporter and writer Chabeli Carrazana from the 19th. But first, it's a great conversation, another one with Dr. Jason Johnson. He now hosts his own podcast, A Word, on Slate. You got to check that out. Follow him on Twitter at Dr. Jason Johnson. Of course, you probably know him from his very regular and always awesome appearances on MSNBC. He's a contributor as well at the Grio and, of course, a professor at the School of Global Journalism and Communication at Morgan State University. And just before I'd walked in the shed, I mentioned, I think earlier, I saw these 2 eagles chasing a red-tailed shouldered hawk. And so I told him about that, and, well, we jumped right into it. I was literally standing outside the shed for the last 20 minutes because I was watching these 2 bald eagles chase a red-tailed hawk, which I've never, ever seen in my neighborhood.
There's a lot of symbolism there.
Yeah, I was going to make certain jokes, but go ahead.
No, I'm just first off, I've never seen them tag team I've never seen birds tag team to grab another bird. They tend to be solo hunters. And then again, two white bald eagles chasing this red brown hawk out of the neighborhood. I mean, obviously, Pete, that's the sort of thing you support. I'm very disappointed in you, but not surprised.
Yeah,
not surprised.
There are,
this is the kind of aviary gentrification that we're complaining about every day. That that's important for us to highlight. So
well, a lot of the red-tailed hawks are wanting to teach bald eagles.
Critical Robin theory. Critical Robin theory.
I was trying to do it. You got me. I was trying to get there, and I stumbled, and you beat me to it. Critical Robin theory. Why has it got to be a white head? I mean, it is. It's a white-headed bald. Why has it got to be bald? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because that really brings it in. I'm pretty sure both of the bald eagles were also sort of like wearing those sunglasses that you always see for bots on Twitter who were saying racist.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. One of them had kind of a frizzy haircut. There was a Karen eagle and a sunglass wearing eagle.
Karen eagle.
Karen eagle.
Do you spend time? I spend a significant amount of time on YouTube watching all of these Karen videos. Have you ever done that?
Dude, no, man. I'm trying to protect my mental health.
Yeah.
So there's three things on YouTube that I know are massively, massively popular.
Yeah.
That I don't watch.
Go ahead.
I do not watch soldier reunion videos. I know people love those. The soldier showing up and like his daughter is crying in the middle of the wrestling match or whatever it is. I can't deal with that. I mean, and I get it. It's sweet. Like I have friends who are veterans who are like they will inject that shit into their veins. Right. But for me, It's just too schmaltzy. Like and it feels like an intimate moment that like, it doesn't feel reasonable to have this shared with the world. I also do not watch unboxing videos. It makes no sense. I'm glad that JoJo Siwa or whatever it is making her money, but I do not understand unboxing videos. And then lastly, any combination of either like Karen videos, as they're called, or like police harassment videos. Dude, I can't, man. Right. I can't watch that stuff. It's just too bonkers for me, even though I've had those experiences directly.
Yeah. So is that why? Is it like to compare a much less of a struggle? Is it why I don't watch like shows based on real life as a stand-up comedian? And because there's several of these shows out there, and because what you won't watch the Karen, it's traumatized you because you have to deal with that kind of in your real life, and maybe I don't as much. You have to concern about it. I don't have as much concern. What is it that it brings you up in you? Well,
for me, it's kind of annoying because like with the police violence videos, it's because I know almost 99.47% of these cops are not going to face any consequences. So it's watching them be terrible people and harass folks and everything that's caught on video. My immediate thought is like, and what's the crap that they get away with when there's not a camera there, right? Or when they manage to destroy the footage. Like, I'm like, I don't want to watch this. It's like a snuff film. With the Karen stuff, it's a similar dynamic of like, nothing's going to happen to them. And it's just watching videos of people being rude. And I saw somebody point this out on Twitter that it's like, Jussie Smollett is going to get jail time for, faking a crime. Right. And yet all these Karens who call the police for non-crimes on black people, none of them are going to face any consequences. He threatened me with a knife. No, he didn't. He was trying to get a parking space. Right. But she's not going to get a fine. She's not going to go to jail for dragging police out into something completely ridiculous. So, yeah, that's why I don't usually I can't, man. I can't consume that sort of stuff on a regular basis. I just had a conversation with Amber Payne, who's great. She's launching this new outlet called The Emancipator. I was talking to her on my podcast on Slate a Word, and she was talking about like all the new attention to these sorts of issues since George Floyd was murdered in 2020. And I'm like, I get it. I do. And I think The Emancipator is going to be a great outlet. But I'm like, I can't do a steady diet of that stuff. I won't want to get out of bed. And then it just means the cops will find me in my house and shoot me like they did with Atiana Jefferson. So it's not like getting in and out of bed or leaving your house keeps you safe from police brutality. They kind of show up everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly what I thought. You have some kind of perspective like that because it's different. I mean, it's a wise Latina. I look at things through the eyes of a wise Latina. Remember how controversial that was? Like, that's one of the reasons I love having conversations with you, even about nothing. Like, I'm always prepared to talk with you and a couple of other people, but I often just want to just have a conversation with you about a thing that I'm seeing happen, maybe give you my take, maybe not, but just get yours because you're seeing it differently based on your own journey in that body that you have.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. So this year, and I don't know that they listen to this podcast, so they're okay. So I won't necessarily be spoiling it, but like I always say that there are all sorts of issues that as you get older, hopefully you become more enlightened and understanding about, right? Perspectives, right? And I was saying how, it's interesting. You and I both grew up in an age where in the 80s, hell, early 90s, there were things that you could get away with sort of publicly saying about black people or gay people or just all sorts of just the level of sort of public discourse was a lot meaner. It could be a lot meaner in sort of public neutral spaces. And as that's changed, and I've always said, like, if somebody accused me of saying something in 1989 or 1991, you're probably right. I don't know what the hell I said back then. Probably was really offensive because that's what you get away with. But just like you were saying that you enjoy sort of hearing different perspectives now, and even as a reasonably enlightened guy as you are, there's still things you can learn from different perspectives. I've been thinking about this for a while. And like I said, I don't know if my friends actually listen to the podcast, but I have two very, very dear friends who are neighbors of mine in Maryland, and they're a queer lesbian couple with an adorable daughter. And like, we have sort of a routine where a couple times a month on Wednesdays, I will go get wings from, Wild Wings or B203s or whatever it is. And we'll sit around the house and play with the baby and hang out and gossip, whatever it is. And then we watch Batwoman on the CW. I generally don't like CW shows because I find them to be, except for Black Lightning, a lot of them, they don't pass my Rachel Bechtel test. I think some of the acting is kind of campy, et cetera, et cetera. But Batwoman is a nighttime superheroes TV show about a Black lesbian and her dating life and her adventures and her fighting crime. And well, when that show came out, I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I mean, it wasn't something that I liked or disliked. When I watch it with my friends, it just hits me so much more like how meaningful this is. They're both comic book fans. And I can identify with the fact that, like, damn, the first time I saw an actual Black superhero in a cartoon, was Cyborg on the Saturday morning Superpower show in like 84. I know what it was like to see the Falcon in a movie long before Black Lightning or anything else like that. But if you are a Black gay woman who's interested in comic books, you've never seen anybody who looks like you. You've never seen anyone who's cute, who's not a sidekick and everything else like that. And so, like, I have gained a real appreciation for the show because I know what it means now. And regardless of how enlightened I may or may not think I am, like, I look forward to it because of the joy that my friends get out of watching this show that I never could have understood. So, yeah, like, these perspectives matter. This sort of representation stuff matters. They are like, my gift for them is something that I got from the set of the show, and they're squealing with joy, in a way that, like, I probably would have 15 years ago if somebody gave me a signed copy of a Black Panther
comic.
That. So,
that's the perspective that that's. Let me ask you this: how much does representation matter to a minority student in their school? Let's say they're a minority of the people in their school. Let's say are Black, brown, whatever, non-white, and there aren't many adults at all that are Black or brown. And I ask the question because that's literally what is happening in my community, which I'm really involved in trying to change. And but it's not a minority. It's not like where I grew up, where there's like 2 Black kids, maybe 1 at one point. I mean, there's plenty of Black and brown families. It's like 30 or 40%. The district is non-white, and yet there's very few non-white adults in the actual school. And why does that matter or not for the student, for the non-white student?
Yeah. So There's a couple of things. And you know, God, I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago at this point, because we do need to bring her back. But I don't know if my mother, when we had my mother on the podcast, I don't know if she told the story about like in the 80s when she was applying for a job. My family had moved, you know, we were about 30 minutes from Ferguson outside of St. Louis, and she was applying for a teaching job. My mother had gotten like global awards for her teaching when we had lived in Germany and when we were in Virginia before we moved to the United States. And, you know, they rejected her. Like nobody got no job offers to be a teacher, none. And then 2 or 3 years after we lived there, there was like a federal investigation by the Department of Justice into the school district that I was in, highlighting the fact that my school district had never had an African-American teacher, period, in the history of the school district. And I remember seeing somebody on television. It was like the superintendent. I'm like 8 or 9, and the superintendent's on TV. We're watching the local news, and he's like, "Oh, well, we haven't had any applicants. Blah blah blah." And I remember like turning to my mom. I was like, "Mom, didn't you apply for a job here?" She's like, "Yeah, I did." You know, so like even at 9, I was like, "Hey, the guy on the news is lying." Like my mom is right here. I know she applied. So I start that with a catalyst because, you know, when you have teachers in the school who are black and brown and who may actually have certain kind of cultural competence with a large number of the students, there are things that they will be able to see and understand and engage in with the students that sometimes white teachers do not know how to do or do not want to do. It's not a guarantee, right? But when I think of some of my experiences in school, when I think of the ways that my white teachers looked at me, and I was an excruciatingly charming child and also a very, very good student. But like when I was having trouble in math, I had a white teacher who was just going to keep passing me in math because she didn't want to bother. Right. She just figured I was the black kid who didn't know how to do math. It wasn't until my parents found out and started hiring a private tutor for me that anything happened. She did not care because I was just this little colored kid. I think about when I was younger and I got sick at my daycare, which was a teaching daycare. I had like a 100-degree temperature. I had gone into a mini. I had fainted. My eyes rolled back in my head. They didn't bother to call my mother because they just figured I was one of who knows how many kids that she had. Like the level of abuse that I dealt with, both academically and personally, from white teachers is immense. And when you have a school that is full of black and brown people, I'm just talking about life-saving stuff that makes a difference. And I'll give another quick example. So, and again, ironically, I just interviewed her on my podcast on Slate. No. You know Quinta Brunson? So Quinta Brunson, she's a stand-up. She used to be a Buzzfeed. She was on the Black Lady sketch show, and she has this new show that's going to. They had a premiere pilot like a week ago. But she has a new show coming out in January called Abbott Elementary, and it's really funny. Like it's a legitimately really funny sitcom. And she talks about the fact that, like, you know, it's a single camera sort of documentary comedy thing. And she talks about the fact that, like, you know, she went to a school for arts and sciences in Philly. And she said, and my experience was I had a lot of black teachers who wanted to be there, who didn't see these black children as a burden or a nuisance or something that needed to be changed and civilized. They saw a bunch of kids. So I think that representation matters. Dude, I've been at places where I was the only black faculty member.
But even if it's not pernicious or poorly, you know, have poor intentions, it's still like my mom was a white teacher in a half black, half white school. And like she had to have training to look out for all kinds of cultural things, like the idea that you're just not sensitive. It's not necessarily even that you have bad intentions. You just don't see what a kid is dealing with. And the same could be said with anybody with developmental disabilities. That's what inclusion is about. It's not only about ethnicity. It's about all kinds of different things that you're not going to recognize if you're not trained, if you're not, in this case, representing that. And I think it's just so important. And I'm not sure what to do about it, how to get more, you know, people of color in the district. But people argue, you make the argument, and that's why I wanted to ask. So, well,
let me also add this. Like,
there's the challenge to it in part is where you want to go and the burdens that are placed on the people in that position, right? Because if you're the one black teacher or one of few black teachers in these majority white environments, then everybody tries to make you the de facto race diversity. You know, and like, first off, everybody ain't qualified for that. Everybody doesn't want to do that. You know, they may not have the personality or the capacity for it. And so really it can't be, you know, the goal should be, we don't have to burden all the black and brown teachers with being the saviors for the black and brown kids. It's got to be about people learning how to treat. We can make it simpler than teaching, man. Like, if you're a good freaking barber, you know how to cut everybody's hair. Yeah. You know how to cut black people's hair, Asian people's hair, and white people's hair. If you're trying to be a good damn barber, we would never say you're an okay barber if you can only cut white people's hair. But that's a pretty mediocre barber.
The only add that in school or you go there every day. It's not like the barber. You go there every day. And if you're a black person, much less if you're a white person, and the only people of color you see is the one teacher, and then maybe there's a diversity person there, maybe not, and not right now in our school enough. But then the rest of the people of color are either lunch aides or bus drivers. Those are the black bodies that you see, and they're doing these jobs. They're security. And like it affects a child. It affects a black child in terms of, oh, where are my role models and what can I be someday? And then the white kids, even without, you know, an implicit bias, they go, that's where black people, that's where they work. That's where the white people work. That stuff happens completely unconsciously, and it's super important, is my understanding.
It is, but see, it's also about what those kids are being taught about why people are in different roles. And quite frankly, the dignity of work. Because some of that is classism. Some of that is like, kids get taught at an early age in our country that the cafeteria worker is lesser than the teacher, you know, which is really crappy. And that affects, the truth is, that affects people like most things with racism. That affects everybody all across the board. Like looking down on the cafeteria lunch lady. I mean, yeah, we all love The Simpsons, but the cafeteria lunch lady was always this overweight, miserable person with a cigarette butt hanging out of her mouth and everything else like that. Like, we don't really teach people about the dignity of work in this country. And then, you know, public teachers are sort of treated like crap. So it becomes this sort of larger issue. You can have a school of all black kids, and it still doesn't mean that people don't see some sort of hierarchy and who works what and when and where and how. You can have a black. What is the story in Texas right now? Well, the school had a black principal, and he posted, or somebody posted Facebook pictures of him, you know, kissing his wife on their anniversary, and his wife was black, and he got fired. His wife was black? This just happened. No, I'm sorry. It's a black teacher, a black school principal. His wife was white. I was fine with it if his wife was black. Right, then you just fire him on principle. It's like, but now you're telling me a different. Now I understand where the outrage comes from. I think that happened locally where I live too. I think that's a thing. Interracial marriage is real off-putting for people still. Yeah. You know, there's a thing about that. I mean, like, this was like, because the kids came out and protested on this guy's behalf, and it was something like the school board got involved, and were like, these were dude, like the photos were literally of him like kissing his wife. They weren't unclothed. They weren't. It was like them sitting on a beach, and it was like anniversary photos, and it was on his Facebook page, and somebody took it off his Facebook page. Now, dude, personally, I don't care if he and his wife were into like rope tying and bondage. It's his wife. He can do whatever he wants on your Facebook page. It's not public. It's not like he was coming into school. I disagree.
You know, I disagree. I think the principal should not be posting anything about his personal sexual life on Facebook, more or less. You got to go, I think.
Well, hold on. I can give you 5 minutes.
Just to be clear, right now in my district, like I think it's bigger than that. Of course, that is the racial thing. They're going after it, but it's almost a red herring for worse racial things. Like, we want this black person out, and we're gonna. And in my town right now, in our school, our principal is very pro diversity, whatever the hell that means. But he's not like, he's a good guy. I like him. I think he's good. He has an electric car, Jay. He plugged it in at school. Some guy made a Facebook post and went crazy that he's charging his car at school and using our taxpayer money. But the thing is, let's be clear, it's not about that. That's the strategy. And I think a lot of people don't know it. They're going after people for whatever they want because they're of their already existing ideology. They want them out. They want to replace them with an AR-15 and a tiki torch running the school.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first off, that is hilariously obnoxious. I mean, like to go after them, like good Lord, actually.
I'm going to send you, and I'm going to send you my reaction to it, which is really funny. I posted on Facebook a whole thing about how outraged I was when I found out the school math teacher was heating up her cup of soup every single day in the school microwave. Well, I wanted to ask you then with the 5 minutes I've left, I mean, if there's anything that you want to shout about, you can throw my question out. But I kind of just wanted to keep beating the drum on the issue of voting rights and find out where we're at. And if you think that, seeing that, by the way, they suspended the filibuster to pass the debt ceiling raise. And for another reason, this, quote, one-time suspension. And I get that it's not a massive piece of legislation restoring the Voting Rights Act, but still, where are we? Where do you see us going on these two laws that have been stuck in the United States Senate?
I'm not optimistic.
Really?
And the reason I'm not optimistic, surprise, surprise, is because it's not a real priority.
I just want to be clear. What has to happen is the Senate has to pass with a simple majority these bills. And Biden has to sign it. Why won't they do that? What senator is against that? The president? Is it? What is it? What's this?
So what you have to do, currently we have the thing called the filibuster, which used to mean that if you didn't like a bill and you didn't want it to get passed by a simple majority, then you would have to stand on the podium and speak, basically hold space. And the only way that you could be stopped from this delaying tactic is to get 60 votes in the Senate, right? Then the rules got changed, 30-something years ago, where now you don't have to stand there and speak against the bill. All you got to do is say, I'm going to filibuster. And you can basically stop a vote on any legislation from happening until you get 60 people to break the filibuster. So what is at stake is many Democrats and common sense Americans are saying the filibuster rule is anti-democratic. It doesn't make any sense. If you're supposed to have a democracy, then the majority should win, and you shouldn't be able to have someone just stop a bill from being voted on because they don't like it, right? And even if they do, they ought to be able to do something other than, because that's basically one person can negate the voting rights of millions, hundreds of millions, actually, of Americans. So in order to reform the filibuster, you would need to get all 50 Democrats right now to say, yeah, we're going to reform it for voting rights. And Joe Manchin doesn't want to. Kristen Sinema, we don't know what position she's in. And they may be covering for 3 or 4 other Democrats. That is the current holdup. The problem that I see and the concern that I see about voting rights is, number one, I don't see Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin can't be comfortable with the frickin' Build Back Better Act, which, 60-70% of the public wants done. It's just freaking infrastructure. Give me a damn break. If Manchin can't be convinced to do that, I certainly don't know what he's going to do when it comes to voting rights, despite the fact that he's a former Secretary of State and knows the issues at play. But the larger issue, and the reason I'm not particularly optimistic, is because we have a federal government and we have a president of the United States who does not seem to care or be concerned or interested in holding people accountable who want to end our democracy. Merrick Garland has been terrible. Merrick Garland is doing nothing to successfully prosecute or take account or hold accountable the people who tried to overthrow this country, an anniversary of which are coming up on in just a couple of weeks. OK, the Mueller report literally was a textbook, an instruction booklet on these are the people who broke the law and these are the people who you can bring accountable to justice. What has Merrick Garland done? Nothing. Merrick Garland could bring charges against Donald Trump right now. He hasn't done it. Merrick Garland could bring charges against members of Congress who conspired with the insurrectionists right now. He hasn't done it. What we just got is Congress referring Mark Meadows to the Department of Justice for failure to show up and answer questions. Basically contempt of court. The guy had an effing PowerPoint on how to take over the government. That's illegal. If I'm a 7-year-old and I write a letter threatening the president of the United States, the FBI is going to show up at my school. They're going to knock over all the brownie cupcakes and stuff like that I'm trying to sell for lunch, right? So how the hell is it that we have a government? So here's the thing. I'm not enthusiastic about I'm not optimistic about the future of voting rights, because if these guys don't even care about terrorists who want to kill them and coworkers who want them dead, then they for damn sure don't care about voting rights. And that goes to Biden, and that goes to Harris, and that goes to Merrick Garland, and every other impotent, feckless Democrat who claims that they give a rat's derriere about how this country operates. But at this point, are almost in collusion with the insurrectionists by their failure to actually do something about what happened.
Well, I'm not sure if that's all fair.
Of course you're not.
Did you just of course me?
I did. It's right up there with a well, actually. So, yeah.
So great. I love talking to you. I appreciate you making time for me today. And I hope to talk to him soon. He's gone. I lost him right there at the end. I was having some technical issues there, which is why you heard it change from the video conferencing audio to the phone audio. I didn't have a backup. We scrambled to get that together. It was my fault. Anyway, Jason Johnson, always great. It worked out, I think. Hopefully I didn't edit that wrong. At Dr. Jason Johnson, give him a follow. Let him know you heard him here on the show. And now it's time to get to my second guest, and I've got 3 today. So I'm very excited to introduce you to her if you're not already familiar with her work, if you're not already supporting this great news outlet, which is dedicated to women's issues, women's interests, reproductive health, caregiving, politics, LGBTQ+. And I saw this story. It's their top story over at the 19thnews.org titled, "Did the Pandemic Change Dads Forever?" For some families, the pandemic scrambled gender roles. These dads say they aren't going back. And I read it, and I loved it, and I looked up the journalist I reached out to, the 19th, and I got her. And she joined me on short notice, even though she was celebrating Christmas with her family 10 days early, because I guess they're going on vacation. I don't know. But either way, we were busting each other's chops, or I was really poking fun at her for celebrating Christmas early and for supporting inflatables and everything. And, you know, we never talked before, but we really hit it off. And I was psyched to talk to her about this very important issue. She does great work. You should follow her if you aren't. Chabeli Carrazana on Twitter. All of her work is linked in my show notes, 19thnews.org. Here we go. All right, I've just told you all about her. I'm very excited to be talking to her for the first time. And for the first time, I'm ashamed to say, I finally got a reporter from the 19th. I'm not even sure I've reached out yet, but I'm wanting to start a relationship with everybody there. Chabeli Carrazana, welcome to Stand Up. Thank you so much for joining me to talk about this super great, super important piece you've written.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Before we get to the piece, we did establish that right now, something real quick going on. You and your family are celebrating Christmas today, 10 days early. It sounds pretty psychotic to me. What is happening? Why would you do such a thing?
Well, so we're going to be on vacation on actual Christmas, but I feel like it's very important to do the whole tree thing, sitting around, presents. That needs to take place at some point in time. So I personally don't want to wait till I get back from vacation for all of us to open our gifts. So we're going to do it before, and we decided to do it today.
How many people had to buy into this insane idea?
Oh, no, just mostly my husband and my parents.
Okay, so basically just it's under 10 people that had to agree to this.
Well, I mean, agreeing is a strong term. I really just kind of proposed it and assumed we would all go along with it.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to allow for it. But it is also true that I did find out that you do have inflatable lawn decorations.
Yes, I've heard this is a divisive only for very few people topic, but I have 2. I have Santa driving an RV with a penguin on the top, iconic. And then the second one is a holiday corgi, because our dog is a corgi, also iconic. And I will let you know, Pete, that people walk by my house and comment on our inflatables with great joy. So we're bringing a lot to the community.
They're lying to you because they want to be good neighbors, but they don't like those.
I mean, there are plenty of others, and let me tell you, they are not as quirky as ours. So
And just finally on this, I do think we have to come to some agreement here. Where are you on inflatable nativity scene? Do you have any principles at all, Chabeli?
Well, I think that's kind of where I draw the line a little bit. Do we want an inflatable Jesus? I think maybe no.
I know. But you know why? Because it's a no-win. At some point, that's deflating. And it's just a sad nylon nativity set, just deflated. Baby Jesus, everybody is just deflated. Looks like it's bad.
It's a tough look for Jesus during this season of the year. Yes. I agree.
All right, let's get to your amazing article. I'm psyched to talk to you. This is such an important piece. It's titled, Did the Pandemic Change Dads Forever? For some families, the pandemic scrambled gender roles, and these dads say they aren't going back. Great piece. Psyched to meet you through this piece. It's really important. And I mean, I guess, how did you come to it? Because anecdotally, I'm hearing a lot about this from my friends, my own experience. I would have loved to talk to you about mine. I could never stop talking about this. Who did you talk to, and what kind of research did you get to? Let's get to it.
Yeah. So at the 19th, we've been covering what's been going on with moms in the pandemic. I mean, extensively for the past almost 2 years. It's unbelievable to say 2 years, but almost 2 years now. And so we had a really good idea what was going on with moms leaving the labor force in huge numbers we had never seen before. We've written about that extensively. And then we were starting to get a little bit of research on dads and sort of the comparison experience. And what we saw was at the very beginning of the pandemic, moms and dads were having sort of a very similar experience. They were having similar stresses on their work, leaving work, taking time off work because of care. And then as the pandemic wore on, those paths started to diverge, where dads were more likely to be returning to work. And I think it's really easy to come up with a conclusion about that and just say, dads, they're just not having a hard time. They're just going back to work. Everything's okay for them. Right. Moms are the ones that are still struggling. But I think what was going on under the surface, that was a little bit more complicated. And we had heard from someone who said, a lot of dads just don't have support at work to say, hey, I still have care responsibilities. Like, I can't go back. And so they were being sort of forced back when they didn't want to. And that was really what started us thinking of along this path of what was sort of going on under the data about dads. So we put out this huge call out to dads, not huge. Well, I just tweeted it basically and said, huge. I said, dads, we want to talk to you about your experience with parenting in the pandemic, how it's changed. And we got a ton of response.
Yeah, I'm sure you did, because as soon as I saw the title of the article, I just jumped out of my chair. I'm like, yes, this. And by the way, I do feel bad that the first time I actually invited a reporter from the 19th on, it was to talk about men. but
well, there is something in that, because we wrote a story about moms in the pandemic about a year ago that was sort of similarly crafted, and we put out a call out, and it was really hard to get moms to answer us. And then we do the same for dads. And it's like this tidal wave of dads reaching out to us. And we were kind of joking about it at work. We're like, well, men, they're so silenced. This is really the opportunity for them to just tell us their side of the story.
Thank you for giving us a mouthpiece.
You're welcome. I know it's really difficult.
Well, the truth is, I'm trying to bend it around to prove the fact that it's obviously, and you touch on it in this piece, it's really affects women too, and heteronormative couples, if we're talking about that, and that, we're talking about men, and that, men are realizing a lot of what their partners, their spouses are doing and experiencing. A lot of women are going to work full time and also taking care of a lot of the household chores. And I think a lot of the men kind of think, like, I go to work all day, I'm working all day to provide, I come home, and now I want to eat whatever and not have to do things. But we've really learned about each other's roles, and it's mixing a lot of stuff up. And I would argue making a lot of things better, but I've said too much. Let's get specific. Who did you talk to?
Yeah. So it's the power of visibility, right? What you're talking about. So we talked to dads across the country. It's like over a dozen dads about this. And one of the experiences that shot out to us was this dad, John Keel in Wisconsin, who had his role completely switched. His wife used to be a stay-at-home mom. He was working out in the office, and now they're flipped. She is working out for the first time, and he is out in the world, out of the home for the first time. And he is, and he's at home remote. And so John was sort of talking about all of this, what we call invisible labor that is really gendered. A lot of women take on all the little things, right? Like who's going to take the kids to the dentist appointment or pick up the kids after school, or make sure that we're out of tomatoes this week. Who's going to go pick that up, right? So all of that invisible work that goes on under the surface is now he's taking it on. And so for him, it was like realizing that a lot of that is not acknowledged at all.
Right.
And working through the complexities of realizing for the first time that, oh, my wife has been doing this for a really long time and I haven't acknowledged it for a long time. And now I don't like that feeling when it's, put on me. And so
I want credit for everything I do around the house. Like I'll make videos, time-lapse videos to show how I clean something. And then I will send it a text to my wife and my daughters. And then I wait for an award ceremony and a cookie.
Did you get it?
No one cares. They say you're supposed to do that. You don't get rewards for things you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You also write about Steve Amidon. I might have interrupted you before you were finished with that last point. I'm sorry. But I love Steve's story because this is a different angle of one of the dads you talked to. And I think this is really interesting because the dude moved to Ohio, which is, their fault, but to follow a job that like a dream job at Bowling Green University to be an archivist for whatever reason. Yeah. That's what he really wanted to do. And I think the point there is even when we love our job, and that's always been my case, we really enjoy it. All of a sudden, when you experience your kids, there's something happens and that's changing where you go, I like this better. I love being around my kids even more than I love the job that I really enjoy. Tell me about him.
Yeah. Steve's story was fascinating because it was the flip story of what we had heard from women a lot this year, which was they were choosing to completely leave their careers and quit their jobs to focus on their kids. And so Steve was the one in his family who made that choice. And even recognizing that the job was a really fulfilling job, was a job he loved. But after spending so much time with his daughter during the pandemic, there was no job that he cared about more than that job, the job of being her parent. And he decided, I'm going to quit. And he's been out of work for about a year. And Steve, he's funny because he's like, and people told me, what are you going to do all day? He's like, I have no problem filling the hours from 9 to 3 with things that I'm doing at home and care for my daughter and then picking her up and sort of realizing for him that the priorities shifted very fundamentally, specifically through the pandemic as kind of a vehicle for that to catalyze that change.
I bet you, when did you post this piece?
Today, this morning.
I bet you this is going to be one of the most read pieces because of men being interested in it, of course, but more importantly, because it's a thing that I think so many families are experiencing, and you've really put your finger on this, and I think this is going to be a really popular piece. You talked to this guy, Jeremy Smith, who's the co-founder of something called the Mindful Return Working Dad Course, and however the hell he came up with this employer-sponsored 4-week online class that helps fathers adjust to their roles as working parents, you write. Wherever this idea came from, good for him. It sounds like he might have struck gold. But what did he talk about? What did you learn from him for this?
Yeah, I really loved my conversation with Jeremy because it was a different side of this whole thing. I mean, he's been thinking about this for a long time. So I wanted to see whether he had noticed something had changed. And so he said that this year, the conversations in the Mindful Dad group, which they've had several courses throughout the past year, have really changed, with a lot of dads asking these questions and trying to sort of wade their way through what is a really different experience with work, which I think we've all been having during the pandemic. And, he's just talking about how when he was a father, is particularly working in the financial field, he did not have a lot of support. He was one of the first in his region to ever take parental leave. Huh. And so, now we're hearing all of these dads who are coming out of the pandemic, and the idea of taking almost no parental leave or reducing their leave because they feel like they have to hurry back to work, that is going away. And so that was sort of coming up in the conversations with these dads, figuring out, how do I talk to my employer and explain to them that actually this is really valuable and I want to do it and I don't want to cut it back because you're sort of forcing me back in. And I think that's sort of a new place that we're all entering in, where we're reevaluating the importance of these, what we call benefits, right? About like parental leave, a benefit that you, and as Jeremy was talking about, is not factored into the full return of what a job can give you, is the opportunity to also be a parent without, hindering it.
Yeah, and hey, Chabeli, just grab that mic off of your shirt. It's rubbing a little bit. No worries at all. But I think the other important, leave is one issue. But as women have known and been tortured by as new mothers for working new mothers for maybe a generation now. When you go back, that's after 6 weeks or whatever you have with your baby, and you create that physical connection if you're nursing, and even if you're not. And you go back, I've just witnessed this. I can't, but men are feeling that similarly, can have that similar feeling to some extent. But more importantly, it's about a hybrid situation or a completely different situation. And more men are realizing basically that work doesn't define them. Their job doesn't define them. But it does. Being a dad and being around is the best dad you can be. And I just think that from what I'm hearing, there's a massive change. And you actually have the data to back it up from the Boston College Center for Work and Families. Why this piece and your work and the work of 19thnews.org is so great, because it's just excellent journalism that you did here. What did you learn about the drastic change over the past decade?
And this is with parental leave in particular, which is fascinating because we wrote another story about this that basically talked about the country had not really embraced the idea of parental leave until men started to buy into it. And so the Boston research was looking at Fortune 500 companies and the kind of leave that they were offering. And initially, and actually, hang on, let me find what the actual number is, and I'll start that sentence again.
No, you don't have to. I mean, I can edit whatever, or it doesn't matter. I don't care. People know that we're using data in our conversation. I've got it right in front of me too.
We're being very specific.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the number wrong. Give me 1 second.
Is this the paragraph in there, the Boston College Center for?
Yeah, I got it. Oh, okay. So what that data found was a decade ago, only 1 in 20 fathers was really even taking, more than 2 weeks for the birth of their child. In a decade, that has changed dramatically. Now, about 62% of them said that they were taking, 6 to 16 weeks of leave. And so what we've seen is this gradual shift that's happened over time, but particularly in the last decade, where men have been more willing to take this leave and companies have been more willing to offer it. So sort of this dual thing that has started to happen. And I think what we will see because of the pandemic is an even bigger focus on that, because being at home, sort of the visibility of that work, of that care every day, how difficult it is, I think has really crystallized for a lot of people how important it is to be involved. And we know there's studies already on this, that when dads are more involved with their children at birth, they are more likely to be involved long-term in their lives. And that sort of changes the entire trajectory.
It's such a generational change in terms of what men, even if it's unintentional or unconscious, thought their role was. Like, I go to work and I make the money. That's what I'm supposed to do. And it's whether it's your mom or your dad or whoever, a parent, an adult that's in your life, to be around them, to be with them. And I think that the changing in the ability to work from home, technically and for whatever other reasons, that's such a game changer too, I feel like, where so many men in this case, and women too, are demanding since the pandemic, listen, you want me to come back to work? And I'm telling you, I'm not. Either I stay here or create this new schedule or I'm gone. Is that right? Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, one of the dads we spoke to was an engineer on the Florida Space Coast, and he talked about that. He said, if my company forces me to come back in person, I'm just going to look for a different job that's going to be more flexible. Right. Because the options are there. Right. So I can do that, and something that works better with my life. And so that's something that I think also born of this moment. And, to the point that you were making about dads and moms and care responsibilities, I think one of the most interesting points in this story is the dad, Max, who is working from home remotely, and his wife is a nurse, and she is home about 3 days a week. And he was saying, I go out in my neighborhood and I push, the stroller or walk my child, and 10 people will come up to me and say why I'm like the next Lord and Savior of our community, because I am, I'm known as Sadie's father. That is how he is known. But his wife, who does the same thing as him, 3 days a week, she does it, 3 days a week, he does it. She's not Sadie's mother. He is Sadie's father. Right. And so it's this interesting thing about, dads do half the work, but we praise them twice as much. And that's something that I think
I stopped getting that kind of praise when my daughter was out of the stroller. So now I I walk around with a dolly in a baby Bjorn just so people think I'm such a great guy. It's really, nobody comes close enough to know that it's just a dolly. It's that's such an interesting point, and sad in a way too. But nonetheless, the idea that men are it's changing rapidly, and like everything else, the pandemic really sped it up. Well, I highly recommend everybody read this full piece because it barely scratched the surface with it. I'm psyched to discover your work and talk about the rest of it as I read it and as you post it, and we'll be following you and supporting you. Thank you so much for talking to me, and have a great super early Christmas.
Well, thank you so much. I'll send you an inflatable in the mail.
You will not. You will never have my address. I will never. I'll send it back. I'll somehow find it and send it back and leave it on your lawn. Thank you so much, Chabeli. Really, really great work. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
See, what did I tell you? Isn't she great? She's a great writer, and she's good on the air. Chabeli Carrazana. Go follow her on Twitter. Let her know that you heard her here on the show for the first time, because this is the first time she's been on, and she's on Twitter at ChabeliH, CHABELIH, and you can let her know that you heard her here. 19thnews.org, great organization to support as well. And finally, on today's show, I can't believe we're already here. I've only been working on today's show for like 15 hours, and you wouldn't know that though, because it only says it's an hour 20 in, but I put a lot into this one. Anyway, Eric Segall and I had scheduled to talk about some other issues dealing, of course, with the Supreme Court, but then he had this issue with his back that he needed surgery, and then something else happened, and it led to this something else, and we said, you know what, we should just talk about this on the podcast. And so this is a men's health segment. It's a PSA of sorts. It is not about the court. It is not about legal issues. It is about, well, you're about to hear it. Eric Segall at eSpin Segall, the host of the Supreme Myths podcast, Georgia State University constitutional law professor, Supreme Myths, the book, Originalism as Faith, the book, and here he is right now with quite a story.
Hello.
Hey now. How you feeling?
Is it true? I'm okay. Is it true Friday is your 500th podcast?
That's right.
So when is this going to air, what you and I are doing tonight?
I think I'm going to post it for tomorrow, Thursday.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. I don't have much to say about the Supreme Court. We can make jokes about my penis if you want.
Oh, I'm already recording. That's going to be, we're going to need to really quickly explain why you just said that.
Lynn gave me, I said to Lynn, I can rant about Justice Gorsuch for a few minutes because he is despicable.
Yeah.
He's a despicable man.
Yeah.
And then I thought, but he was dissenting, so it wasn't like his opinion, anything. And I don't have much to say about the court. We already talked about the abortion stuff, which is
we can just talk
horrific.
Listen, everybody listens to this show loves you. We can talk about anything, and people will be happy to hear your take and thoughts on things. And so I want to hear about Gorsuch. I want to hear what you think about the January 6th Commission stuff that you've been kind of paying attention to. But let's just real quick talk about your penis.
Well, I'm not sure I like the way this whole thing began. I didn't know you were. What I was trying to say to you off air was that right before we started talking, I said to Lynn, the court's kind of out of session. I'm kind of tired of the court. I'm really tired of Fox News. We could talk about that because that's actually a huge story that's being underreported.
Okay,
leaving that aside. But I think Pete could probably make my penis funny.
Well, I'm told anyone can.
And then I said, but that's maybe too much information. Like, I don't know. It's kind of personal stuff. And I said, what do you think? And she said, she thought about it, like really thought about it, and said, I think it'd be funny.
Well, I think that it's.
I said, do you think my penis is funny? And she said, no, I think what's happened to your penis was funny.
Right. Well, I think talking about like health issues, especially ones that might have anything to do with anything that could be embarrassing or compromising, I've found that when I record them and share them, I get a big reaction from people saying, you know what, thanks for talking about that. And so.
Okay, then I'm here to share. Yeah. If you think this is in the public interest, I'm here to share.
Well, yeah. So go ahead.
I'm worried. Though I'm a little worried about doing.
Oh, you're safe here. It's a safe space. It's me. What could possibly happen?
Yeah, it's just you and, your 10,000.
Listen, what could happen? Really? Who's going to... we all care about you and anything...
I'm afraid it won't be funny. But
it doesn't have to be funny. Just tell us what happened.
Last Thursday, I had scheduled minor back surgery, a laminectomy it's called. I had one a few months before that was really successful. I'm old. I played a lot of golf and tennis in my life and basketball. Anyway, so my spine's not great. But I did it for my left side like a few months ago, and it was fantastic. Cured everything. So I scheduled it again. And the doctor thought that was a good idea and blah, blah, blah. That was last Thursday. A week ago today. It's really a week ago tomorrow, but I'm pretending we're doing this on the same.
Sure. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. And I'm a podcast guy now, so I know how these things go. So on Monday of last week, I start feeling like somebody is shooting me in the back of my left back, which has never been a problem.
Post-surgery. Monday is post-surgery.
No, pre-surgery.
Oh.
Surgery scheduled for this story goes back to last Monday.
Okay.
And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's like somebody is shooting me in my left back, which is not the pain I was going to get the operation for. I knew what it was, so I was pretty sure I knew what it was because I've had one before. I think it was the two words that no human being ever wants to hear under any circumstances, anytime, any place, anywhere. Kidney stone.
Right.
And I didn't know that's what it was, but that is what it felt like. I mean, because I've had one before. And it feels like someone is shooting you in the back. It's just ridiculous. So the first thing I did was call the back doctor and said, this is happening to me. And he said, well, if it's a kidney stone, we can still do your surgery on Thursday. And if you're in shape, and if you can, and in fact, the anesthesia, it may even help it. I said, all right, fine. And then he prescribed some meds that he was going to give me after the surgery, before the surgery. And last Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was just horrific. I was just in pain the whole time. So that happened. I go to the surgery on Thursday. And I'm not, by the way, I am not, I always say this medically. Urinating is not happening in any way that any human being should ever experience. It is rare. It is painful. It is terrible. That's what kidney stones do. How are we doing on the humor so far?
No, go ahead.
I think for this to be funny, you have to interrupt for this to be funny.
I don't want to. It's a good story.
So I go get my surgery on Thursday, and men my age, with or without kidney stones, after they have anesthesia for like 2.5 hours, which I did, outpatient procedure most of the time, have a lot of difficulty with the urination situation afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I think in fact, I was just watching a show on Netflix or someplace called Love Life, pretty good show.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman in that show had appendicitis. She couldn't pee afterwards because of the anesthesia.
Right. Yeah, it happened to my dad a couple years ago, and yeah,
it's bad,
pretty bad.
Now add that to a kidney stone, and I couldn't pee at all from like 1 o'clock Thursday. I got relieved. Surgery was really early. By the way, one side note: my surgery was scheduled for 7:30. I was the first person scheduled for that 7. I was the first patient of this doctor that day. I love this doctor, not complaining. We had to be there at 5:30, 2 hours in advance.
Okay.
This is standard operating procedure. Last time I did surgery, 2 hours in. Well, no, that's stupid. Why do we have to be there 2 hours in advance? Especially if you're the first one, and especially if it's at 7:30 in the morning. Like, we sat there for a half an hour. We did a half an hour of paperwork. Sat there 45 more minutes, and then I went in. It was poor Lynn had to drive me at 4:45 in the morning
because they don't want people to be late. They want them to be there really early so that they can keep their surgery. That's where the money is made. Let's get them in. Let's get them out.
I will say also, I live in people familiar with the greater metropolitan Atlanta area. I live close to Midtown and downtown near Emory. This surgery was 50 miles away. So, which at 5 o'clock in the morning is only a hour drive. With traffic, it's 17 hours. Anyway, I come home, sleep a little bit, can't pee. Really struggling, getting worried. Thursday night, I'm up every 30 minutes, literally every 30 minutes, and little bit's coming out, but it's really bad, and I think I have a real problem. But the back pain is gone. The shooting me in the back pain, which is really intolerable without strong meds, that's gone. Like, that's all gone. So that's the good news. The kidney stone, whatever terror it was causing to my back is gone. Saturday and Sunday are terrible. And in non-COVID times, I absolutely go to the emergency room. There's no question. And I called the urologist. I called my general doctor, and he said, well, you have two choices. I mean, come Friday at 1 o'clock, whatever it was, you won't get in to see a practice. I don't have a urologist. So he said, it's your choice. Go to the ER or not. He was worried about about bladder infection, blah, blah, blah. Because I am, even at 63, Mr. Tough Guy, as you know. Is that how you think of me, as Mr. Tough Guy?
I think anybody that knows you even a little bit.
So I make it through the weekend, but Monday morning I wake up at 7 and I have two choices because it's just terrible. I know something's wrong. I go on the internet and I look for a urologist and at least a big practice, at least someone, and I find one. There's only one open at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock. All the other ones open at 9. This practice has like 9 offices throughout Atlanta. So I call and God intervened or something. They had an 8:30 cancellation. So they said, come on in. And I said, that's great. Because I knew at that point I was risking something serious. So Lynn then gets up with me, cancels her stuff, takes me to the urologist. And they do a sonogram, believe it or not, of my bladder. And I've had many sonograms, it turns out, which is kind of weird for a person who doesn't have babies. But anyway, and my bladder was like overflowing into the ocean or something. So they were really all concerned because this wasn't emptying at all, which explained my pain for the last 2 days. So then the unspeakable happened. I mean, I'd heard about this. I had heard this is the last thing you ever want in life, or one of the last things you ever want in life.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get the dreaded. There was a word worse than kidney stone. There is one word that is worse than kidney stone.
Catheter. And had you ever been catheterized?
I have not.
I actually like it so much. I get it. Like it's my kink. No, my dad had to have it, and I took him to the ER, and it was I don't want to get too graphic about how that experience.
I'm about to. Once we started this, there's no going back.
Yeah, well, he does describe it now as, he said, remember when that nurse shoved a butter knife in my dick? I think implying that anything, the whole implication is it's a thing that's wider than the whole, but go ahead.
Hold that thought. That thought. Butter knife.
Yeah.
I think I did not get a butter knife stuck into my dick. What I got stuck into my dick?
A snow shovel.
Was a huge, I have to call it, tube of cord. I don't know what to call it. It's like a rope, a plastic rope. And it was fucking long. I was like, now, Nick, I'm a big guy, but why do you...
Big guy.
Why do you think I have enough space?
Is it true that they came in with 2 catheters, saw your height, and said, you can just give me the shorter one?
Pete, I looked at this thing, and then they say, and then finally the doctor says, look, you have several choices. Oh, I did a urine sample before that, which required 20 minutes of pushing out, an ounce. An ounce is too much, a drop. And they said, we don't think you have I thought I had a urinary tract infection, maybe.
Oh.
But they said, no, you don't, which actually makes sense because I really thought the kidney stone was the problem with all of this anyway. But they said, you don't. Because of that, though, there is something wrong. I mean, your bladder's not emptying, and now you run a huge risk of getting a UTI if we don't do something, because your huge male bladder is full like the Pacific Ocean. So,
it's quite an image.
It is quite an image. All I can, Pete, it's a really tiny hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's tiny.
Yeah, I think everybody knows about. I think penises come in all shapes and sizes, but I think what's called the meatus, I believe it's called. I think the hole's about the same, and I think men, women, everybody knows about how big it is. Go ahead.
It's tinier than Neil Gorsuch's brain.
Oh, wow.
And that's tiny. And
ironically, his penis hole is huge.
And I saw this. It looked like it was orange. And it looked like a fucking extension cord.
And you were basically like, that's not going to go.
I'm like, that can't go in there.
Right.
It just can't. There's no scenario where that goes in there. And if it does, it's not coming out. and I don't want you to try this at all.
Oh.
And the doctor who I think fancied himself a funny man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Best kind of doctors, you know. Yeah. He was like, okay, well, you can go to the ER when you get a UTI and they can like cut you up or something. I don't know what he said, but he said he was trying to be funny, didn't scare me and everything else. So Lynn and I conversed for a second. And by the way, poor Lynn is watching all of this. Now, I will say this. Lynn saw something no human should ever be allowed to see happen to somebody else. But I will say that when my middle child was born, Sarah, was born. By the way, Lynn went 42-hour labor, no drugs. When we finished that, I said to her, next time either you do drugs or I do drugs. The one of us is doing drugs. That's true story. I said that. And I wasn't kidding. Like I'm not joking about that. Like next time either you're doing drugs or I'm doing drugs.
Sure, yeah.
But anyway, I watched that from the best vantage point possible, and it was beautiful and wondrous and incredibly disgusting all at the same time. Right? Yeah. I mean, it's one of the great miracles of life. Yep. I'm glad I saw it. Yeah. Nothing Lynn has seen, I think, compares to that. I think. Having said that, no human being should still see any other human. So I said, Lynn, do you want to step out? And of course, my wife was like, no, I'm staying.
Really?
Yeah. So they lowered the anchor, and it's the most invasive. Actually, before that, they put me on the table, and I had to like lift my legs up a little bit. And I looked and I said, wow, now I kind of get what you guys. This is funny. Okay, this is kind of funny. I said, now I kind of get what you go through. I mean, this is really demeaning. And I had this thing over me and like.
Oh, women go through?
Yeah. Like you got this once a month.
Yeah. Checkup.
And she said, see, and she kind of felt superior a little bit about that. That went all away when she saw what happened next. In other words, there was a moment in time when she correctly said, well, this is very demeaning and terrible. And now I understand a little bit better what women go through. And I'm really sorry for that. But all of my sympathy for women and her superiority went away when she saw what happened.
Yeah. Oof.
Is indescribable. I'll leave it to your listeners' imaginations to figure it out. But
they can't terrible. Give you any kind of local anesthetic or even.
Well, that's the other thing.
Or even just why? Is it not worth it to get knocked out? I mean,
the doctor. Well, no, they don't knock you out. But
why not? Why not? Of all the pain.
That's a good question. That's a good question. They don't have this is a urologist. They don't have that kind of equipment. I don't think. Like they don't have general.
Well, they should get it.
I agree, 100%.
I mean, there should be a urologist who literally who sets him, a urologist who sets him or herself apart by saying, when we catheterize, we knock you out. Come on over to Mike's.
Here's the idea. I concede this freely. The actual time it takes is really short, right? So one thinks, one can withstand almost anything for 7 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever, I used to think that. I'm not sure anymore.
So the height of the pain lasted for how long was the actual?
I want to say 7 to 8 hours. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
You mean in real time or in pain time?
In real time. How long?
I don't remember. 10 to 15 seconds.
Wow. So my dad.
One second about that. That means why once they put it in, they have to inflate a balloon.
Ooh.
And I want people to understand that image there, not of my penis, but in general, of men's of sticking something in that top part, and then it goes down, and then a balloon pops open.
A balloon pops open inside.
They have to put the balloon goes in the bladder so that it I don't even know. You know what, Pete? I don't even know. But they put a balloon in the bladder.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that you have to have that. That's part of it. And there was this hose hooked to my private parts for 48 hours.
Yeah.
And it was really terrible.
Yeah.
It hurt. It burned.
Mm-hmm. Was it instant relief once they intubated your penis?
Not instant. Not instant, but pretty soon. Yes.
In terms of, did you immediately does the ocean that you describe your bladder becoming, does that immediately?
Not immediately, but happened pretty fast. Well, this is the other thing, and maybe this will suggest what's really happening on the size issue here. So first of all, before we get to that, the doctor said they're going to put they're going to put something on it to numb it. And I was like, that's good. I want it to be numb. That's what I want. I want it to be as cold as ice. I want numb. I want it to be numb.
Yeah.
The doctor doesn't do it. A nurse did it, or a PA did it. Excuse me, not a nurse, a PA. And I like PAs. I have a lot of PAs in my. I see PAs all the time. I think they're great people. I like PAs. There was no Novocaine. There was no topical. I was like, wait a minute, time out. I see the hose. I see what she's about to do. And I'm like, where's the topical? Oh yeah, well, you want that?
Oh God.
I'm like, what? Well, she didn't really do it. Like she put some. Let me just say this: whatever she put on there, it wasn't numb. There was no numbness. No numbness involved.
I'd have been like, not only do I want that, I want you to punch me in the face and knock me out.
So there's a bag.
Yeah.
It was a 900 milliliter. I don't know metric system because I'm not educated. But it was 900 milliliter something bag.
Mm-hmm.
And what they said to Lynn was, and then it's attached to your leg.
Yeah.
And then this horrific hose balloon Captain Nightmare thing attached to my private parts.
Mm-hmm.
Private parts. And literally she said to Lynn, you probably won't have to change the bag because we want to see you back here Wednesday morning. This is Monday at 8. This is Monday at 9 a.m. They want me back Wednesday at 9 a.m. 8 a.m. So you probably won't have to change the bag, but if you do, here's how you do it.
Right.
Now, in normal times, I think it is possible for a person to change their own bag, and I would do that because I would not subject my wife to this. Pete, I had back surgery Thursday. And I mean, it wasn't big back surgery, but it was serious enough where I'm not supposed to do things for a couple of weeks, and blah, blah. And there was no way I could change this bag because it required to bend. Anyway, so she had to teach Lynn how to change the bag, but she said, don't worry about it because maybe once. That was a lie. That was wrong. That was misinformation. This all happened at somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30 Monday morning. By 2:00, the bag was like 3/4 full. And it was heavy as fuck on my leg.
Yeah. Just carrying around a bag of your own urine. It's just
a
lot of thoughts and emotions.
A lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
A lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
And I really don't. So my sister used to joke. My sister, I love my sister. She has a very big heart. She's a little crazy, and she wouldn't mind me saying that. But anyway, she gets very emotional. Before Sarah was born, she really did say to me, Jessie, my 30-year-old, was a C-section with my former wife. And then got pregnant with Sarah. And Liz said to me, don't watch, you never have sex again. It'll turn you gay.
Yeah.
And she didn't mean that. She didn't mean that seriously.
Yeah.
But she was joking. It had none of those effects, with 2 children, blah, blah. But I didn't want Lynn dealing with this.
Right.
Like, I don't, I mean, ew,
that's not,
no. And had it been like a week, I just would have said, well, let's get a nurse, I'll pay the money, But the combination of the nurse saying you probably won't have to change it, or maybe once at most, and it's only 2 days, I'm coming back in 2 days, I'm like, all right. And Lynn could not have been more perfect for this entire process. She gets an A+.
We probably should have brought her in on the interview.
Yeah, maybe we should have. Anyway, she was perfect.
When my dad got is in a similar situation as after he broke his leg and had to have surgery and anesthesia and couldn't. Yeah. It was and so we happened to be up there, me and the girls, and so the girls were there while my dad's got this bag attached to him, and possibly one of the funniest moments of all time in my family. My dad just went for it. You only get to make this joke one time. And so he's sitting there in the chair and he's got the bag on the ground and Julia comes over, like give him a drink or something, and he says, watch out. Don't step on that bag. You could rip my dick off. He said that to his granddaughter, and I was, we laughed so hard.
Well, two things about that. One is we actually had a parenting question about this, and you and I have talked parenting now for 10 years, 11 years. So I do. But I do have very vivid memories of my father having a hernia operation when I was 11 or 12. And I remember this like it was yesterday. And he came home from the hospital, and he really wanted me to show me the scar. Sure. And I was like, no, thank you. No, I don't need to see that. But he insisted. Finally, he just insisted, and I saw the scar in that very early. It was a bad thing. Like, so I was not. So Lynn and I talked about what do we, Sarah's 14, Kai is 12 and a half, 13. What are we going to tell the girls about this? Because I actually don't want them to necessarily to know I have a bag of urine on my leg.
Oh, why not?
Sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. Because ew. Anyway, but we decided we just tell them that I'm going to move slowly for a couple of days, and I'll give them details if they want it. Dad's not going to be himself for a couple of days. And that's what we did.
Come on! I can't even believe this. I'm on such a different page with you on this.
Well, the thing is, if they were interested, if they'd asked, I would have told them. But
can I tell you my lowbrow response?
Yes.
In my family, honestly, and people can judge us if they want. Like, we almost give each other, at least me and the girls. Val has a little bit more pride and maturity, potentially, or whatever you want to call it. But like, we kind of give each other any opportunity for humor, and also honesty is really important when it comes to humor. And then, it's just like, why? I don't know.
That's fair. No, that's fair. And if they had expressed any curiosity, I would have done it. But I also, Pete, and then this is still true at this moment in time, like this whole thing might be the worst judgment I've ever exercised in a public place ever. But I wasn't feeling funny. I didn't necessarily trust myself to be the best dad in that moment. And that was part of it too. But I wouldn't judge it. I mean, either if they, and also they're in their own worlds right now. They're teen, so I was happy to have them be in their own worlds.
I think there's something really important about allowing your kids or your family members or even friends to see any kind of
I agree with that.
Developmental disability, any kind of struggle of any sort.
I did. They knew I was struggling. Yeah. They just didn't ask for details, and the bag was under my sweatpants. But that's the other thing.
Does it hurt coming out?
Nowhere near as much.
But it still does hurt.
And I was expecting it to hurt more than it did.
Yeah.
So I would say that was okay. But there, hold on. But just since we already started, we can't leave it halfway here. This whole thing may be a huge mistake. But we then had to change the bag like 5 times. Which kind of makes sense.
What's the big deal? You just go pour the piss out, and then you come back and put it back on. What's the big deal?
Yeah. That's how Lynn. Well, first of all, that's how Lynn felt, and she never for 1 second did she do anything other than I want to do this for you. It's, I don't know, Pete. You don't think you'd feel a little vulnerable with
No, not me.
But here's the funny.
But that's me. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it.
This may not be funny, but this is the personal part. I will say.
Yeah.
It is I think you won't remember this. There's no reason in the world you'd remember this, but you've even commented on this, but it was like 7 years ago, and we got together in DC once. Remember, like a long time ago. I've had issues with the old prostate and stuff like that my entire life, and I have had issues. I've had issues with emptying, and I feel like I have to empty. It's not, that's been since like high school, and and Lynn is obviously intimately familiar with all that. And Lynn's a camel, so we joke about it because she can go like 2 days, I can go like 20 minutes.
Wow.
And we have joked in the so I should have asked her permission to say this. I think this is okay. So I've joked with Lynn many times in the past, and when I say many times, I mean 100 over 15 years of knowing each other. God, I wish you could pee for me. Can you go pee for me? I would love for you to pee for me.
Right.
Like that's been a running joke in our marriage.
Right.
Well,
in a way she did. In a way she did 5 times.
She absolutely did.
Yeah.
Now we've crossed that bridge. We've crossed another bridge in our marriage. That we
a lot of what's happening here, at least I know what I'm thinking, and other folks are thinking probably similar. Is would my husband or wife do that for me? And
I never doubted that, but go ahead.
I don't even think Val would have brought me to the hospital. She'd be like, "Can you get an Uber? I got to work. Can you get an Uber? An Uber?"
So that happened for 2 days and at nights. And so I did a lot of research on this while I was recovering about different kinds of bags and catheters, because I didn't know if it was going to be a 2-day thing or a week thing or whatever.
Research.
And it turns out I had like the biggest bag you can get. No, it's true. Like you can't find a bigger bag. Like
they gave you the large bag and the small catheter.
They sized it up correctly, and they gave me the biggest bag ever. So it's fucking heavy.
Yeah.
When it's so that was just all terrible.
Why you can't? Why don't you just sit next to the toilet and take the tube off and drop it right in the toilet or even outside and just let it drain out? You don't need a bag. You ever think about that?
Yeah, I think you would die. I think the whole thing has to be really sterile and clean.
Oh, right. Yeah, you don't want to. Maybe you shouldn't bring it out in the dirt.
The bag is an essential part of this treatment. I think you missed that.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, you don't want to drag that tube across the bathroom.
And here's
floor.
the other thing. When the bag comes off, but the catheter stays in.
Right.
What that means, I don't want to pay. There's all kinds of logistics, and you know me. So I think I've said this on the show before. I'm really bad at spatial relations. I think you know that from other things. So like standardized tests I always did pretty well, except for like spatial relations 48. So when the bag comes off, the catheter is still in. So the longer it takes to discharge the bag, the greater the possibility of spillage. One doesn't want spillage.
You're right.
The last thing one wants is spillage.
Yeah, I mean, it's urine. This pee-pee.
I haven't showered for 2 days. If you saw me, so to finish the story, we went this morning, and so I took the PSATs, the SATs, the LSATs. I took law school. I took exams in high school and college. I took law school exams. My law school exams first year were incredibly important to my career, which is really stupid. This conversation for a different day. But how you do first year law school is, if you ever want to teach or do anything like kind of highfalutin, is incredibly important, even though it shouldn't be, and blah, blah, blah. But the test I had this morning was the most important test I ever had in my life.
What was it?
So here's what they told me. I go in, and the physician's assistant says to me, "Okay, here's the plan. We are going to pour 300 millisomething of water into your catheter. And then we are going to take the catheter out. That's going to hurt a little bit, but that's what's going to happen. First, we deflate the balloon. By the way, I thought it was a good idea to deflate the balloon before it came out.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because, yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And when it's finally over, then we're going to leave you alone. And we have to see if your bladder is working on its own now. Because the whole point was my bladder wasn't working. That was the point. Right?
Well, just to be clear, they're sending you said pour the water, like they have a bucket. Like they pump water up that tube back?
They had a funnel, Pete. I'm not a science guy, but you know those funnels? And
yeah, okay.
They had a funnel, and they poured.
They really did? Okay.
They really did.
That's weird.
Not in the catheter, not in the catheter. And then, so that goes down to my bladder.
That goes up through your penis?
I don't know what not up, down.
It's a reverse. The water is going up your urethra.
Okay, I mentioned 48 in space relations.
Okay.
Here's what happened. I was sitting down, and she came with what looked like a ninth grade, I don't know, scoopy thing. I don't know. And she poured water into the tiny little hole in the top of the catheter. And that went on for a pretty long time, actually. That wasn't fun because I eventually felt that going into my bladder.
So they poured water up into you. That's interesting.
Well, down. Why are you saying up? Down.
Well, down a tube, but up your dick and into your bladder.
I'm sitting down.
Your dick?
You're worse than me. Down. It's all down.
I don't understand. The catheter is a tube that goes up your dick.
Yeah, but...
And they're putting water in the tube.
I'm sitting down. The catheter is sticking out of my dick, and There's a little hole in the catheter.
Are they sending them? Listen, this is really infuriating. Are they sending water in the opposite direction that urine generally travels? Urine goes out. Are they sending water upstream?
Well, when you put it that way, I guess so.
I got to phone a friend. Do we have any urologists listening?
No.
Call in now.
So they did that, and then they removed the catheter, which frankly, so I'm not going to see. I believe in telling stories. You know, I may exaggerate here and there, but it wasn't that terrible. And believe me, I wanted it out so badly that even if it had been terrible, I wouldn't have cared because having been was terrible. You did want it out? Like, that's not obvious. Like, you didn't want it to you didn't want another day? By the way, when the bag was off, that's when I most wish I was with you, my friend. Because I would have taken that hose in my hand and I would have said, I'm in control of everything. And I would have made you say stuff and I would record it. I would have said, listen to me. Listen to me. The court is a court. I give up. The court is a court.
Exactly.
By the way, quick aside before I get to my examination. Yesterday on Twitter, I put a picture of Sweeney and I watching Steph Curry. That's the NBA. No, I'm not supposed to talk about that. But last night, Steph Curry in Madison Square Garden broke the all-time record for three-point shots. Sweeney was watching it with me.
That's your dog.
This gives me no, but Lucy wasn't there. Sweeney was watching it with me.
No, but Sweeney's your dog. People don't mind that. No.
Oh, Sweeney's my dog. Sorry. And I put that on Twitter. Sweeney's watching me watch Steph Curry break the record. And I think two people wrote back and something to the effect of, because that's a real court, the basketball court.
Oh, well done.
Damn,
Well done.
Thank you, Twitter. Thank you, social media.
That was good.
Anyway, so she takes, the water's poured, the catheter is out. She hands me a chemistry lab 8th grade
beaker.
Beaker. Yes, beaker. It was bigger than a beaker. Something between a beaker and a thing you pour water on.
A flask.
No. What do you use to put water on plants? Like you water. I don't water plants. That's in New York. But you water plants.
Oh my
God. Anyway. So, and here's the test. Can you empty yourself?
Yeah.
And
why did they say empty yourself? You used that phrase earlier. Can you piss? Can you pee? Empty yourself. I would start telling all my deepest and darkest demons to whoever asked that.
And they told me that if I could, then the next plan would be you go home and assuming things are normal for the rest, not totally normal, but things are better the rest of the day, you're good. But if you can't pee at home, you got to come back and the word I'll not speak again for the rest of my life will have to be put back in. So this is a big test. This is a really big test.
Big test.
So, plus, Pete, I have trouble anyway, like in normal life.
Right. You've always had a little bit of an issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm really worried about, but I had never wanted to pass a test this badly in my life, ever, not one time. So that happens. She goes out. Lynn is just being very passive, sitting there watching me. I think she's praying to her. Lynn and I are both kind of agnostics, but I think she was pleading to whatever God she believes in.
Pee-pee God, the gods of urine.
The gods of pee-pee. And it came out.
Full on stream?
Effortlessly into the thing that people use to fill water on plants. and at that moment I knew this ordeal, at least temporarily, is over. And it was. And he said, go home. And hopefully you'll return to normalcy in a day or two. It's not going to be totally normal for a day or two, but it will. And that'll be that.
You told me off air that several other objects came out, which seemed to be maybe causing the blockage. You said there was a paper clip, some marbles.
I did not say that. I said none of those things. You are lying.
There was some jacks.
I did mention sonograms. So I had the sonogram on my bladder. And then when that was done on Monday, I also had a sonogram to see if I had a kidney stone. Well, it turns out I did, which I knew anyway for the pain. And I still have one in the left side of my kidney.
So what do you do about that? Is it?
So first of all, I want to say this. The person who, I'm not making this up. I swear to God, people, I'm going to pause. I am not exaggerating. I am not telling a tall tale. There may have been some exaggerations earlier in the story about the various lengths and shapes of things. This is not an exaggeration. So the they would send me to this other room before the catheter was put in to get a sonogram, and a kid walks into the room. I wanted to say 19. Maybe he couldn't be 19, obviously, but he looked like just a kid, and he didn't really look like that smart a kid, to be honest. And he does the sonogram, and he says, "Yes, you have a kidney stone on your left side," which is where I thought I was being shot by a gun 3 days earlier. But he said, "But where it's placed right now shouldn't be causing you discomfort." And I said, "It's not. It's not." He said, "Yeah, it probably moved because they move. Kidney stones move." He said, "Okay." And that ended that situation. So I am living now with the knowledge. Now, having a kidney stone that causes no problems is common. Like, that's not a big deal. But it's better not to know. Like it's better to live in ignorance.
I would. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You have a piece of shrapnel close to your heart.
So right. So he said it's probably. We don't know what's going to happen to it. It may come out normally. It may dislodge. It could get problematic later. We don't know, but nothing we can do about it. So I am here with you tonight. The ticking time bomb, my left kidney. I'd like to think nothing's going. He said it could have been there forever. And I said, well, how do you explain? I said to this kid who I think graduated math yesterday, like 8th grade algebra. I don't want to have that pain I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because that was really bad. Like that was people who had kidney stones know that's real. People, women have said it's worse than child. And he said, well, I have to tell you, it's lodged right now in a place that's not going to cause you discomfort, but it absolutely could become dislodged. He didn't use those words because he wasn't old.
If you see Segall, punch him in the back.
So as of this moment, talking to you, by the way, I want the audience to remember for maximum sympathy position here that this is all happening, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Today's Wednesday. I had pretty, not serious, but I had back surgery Thursday. So it was kind of like a double whammy. Although now I think I'm glad they happen at the same time, concurrently rather than consecutively. Because at least because there are things you're not allowed. There are things you are not. This is really funny. And I shouldn't say that in advance. It's not really funny. Forget I said that. Strike that last sentence.
Okay.
So after this back surgery, the post-operative instructions are no sex for 2 weeks. That's what the post-operative instructions are. So in other words, so it's nice that this, but here's the interesting thing. So on Monday, after I got home and I have the catheter in and I'm miserable and I'm pouty and I'm mad and I'm in pain and all that. And by the way, I'm not good at this. Lynn was an angel 100% of the time. And I don't like putting people in that position. That's my angle. I just don't. And I should be better at that.
I love it.
I just don't like doing it. So I'm researching and I get to and people can look this up if you want. People can look this up.
Yeah.
I found 10 FAQs about catheters.
Yeah.
And I found a good source from UCLA, which is a very wonderful major university of the world. And it talks what you can do and what you can't do, and this and that, and cleaning it, all this stuff. Number 5. As my children live and breathe. The number 5 instruction was no intercourse. And I'm thinking, why do you have to say that? I have a contraption on my. This
is a direction while the catheter is in. You can't have intercourse.
But the point, Pete, that I think you're missing here is no one needs to be told that. If you need to be reminded of this, you have bigger problems than the catheter in your penis, which, by the way, is as big a problem as a male human being can have, other than something terminal.
That's like saying, you can't give a blowjob while intubated.
So Lynn thought the funniest thing of all of this,
right?
This goes to you. So you and I had an exchange, which I thought I had the funniest line in. Hold on, can I read this exchange to the audience real quick? I'm going to have to just hold on 1 second.
Between me and you?
Yes, hold on.
Oh, okay. Well, folks, this is going to take him about 12 minutes because it includes
I want to read this.
A device. Hold on. Let me just do a live read for today's sponsor while you try to figure out how a phone works. Folks, the Quip electric toothbrush is a game changer.
I can't. Wait, I have to find this. Hold on.
He's still looking. It's really been a real. It's made a major difference.
You're making me laugh. It's not fair.
In my oral hygiene, because this toothbrush, it vibrates in your mouth, and then every 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, this is not the story I was going to tell, but Wednesday, 9:48 a.m. from Pete Dominic to Eric Segall. Direct quote. Good morning. How is your penis? That's a direct quote. Before that, however. Hold on, I'm getting there. Hold on.
Oh, all right.
I wrote, can you hear me, Pete?
Yeah, yep.
I wrote, you said, I have a reminder to ping you. I forget why. That's what you said Monday, 9:09 a.m.
Yeah.
I wrote back, I want to do a live TikTok, but I'm at the doctor with something. I'll write you when I'm myself again. You wrote, what? Ugh. I wrote, it's bad. I have to pee all the time and can't. You wrote something else. You said, no. And then I gave some details. You went, no catheter. And I said, not right now. Had one during surgery. You said, let me know updates.
Yeah.
2 hours later, you write, how's your urethra? I respond, terrible. Home with a catheter for 2 days. Still lots of pain. Thanks for checking in. Don't get old. Enjoy your youth now. You wrote, I hate this for you. I wrote, thanks. Should be better in a few days. You wrote, how's it going, champ, at 7:47 last night? I wrote, and I thought this was the funniest line, I have a hose in my dick, but trying to keep perspective. You wrote, I can understand how that would complicate your views on life. I thought mine was funnier. Lynn thought yours was funnier.
Yeah, mine's funnier, but yours is good.
No.
Yeah.
No, mine was funnier. But I was playing with one arm tied behind. I had my dick tied behind myself.
Well, then I wrote, you wrote, that made me laugh. Thank you, heart. And I wrote, love you, pal. Sorry your dick is intubated.
And that's what I'm sorry. That's what Lynn thought was the funniest. she's been using the word intubated for like a week now.
Oh, good.
This Monday, 3 days.
Good.
Lynn said to me every 3 hours, how's your intubated dick doing?
Well, I mean, it is the 2021 word of the year. So a lot of people, unfortunately, getting intubated.
All right. I don't, Pete, are you really going to air this?
Yeah, I think it's great.
Okay.
I think it may be our best taped conversation of all time.
I apologize to everybody.
No, I think it's fun. Listen, Aaron Carroll, I don't know if you know what happened with him, but he joined me a few weeks ago, and we had a 45-minute conversation that was very personal about like his emotional, like his psychological issues, losing both his parents and his best friend in a year and all this stuff. And I think that it's I don't know, I think that might make this show unique, that the people who come on the show are experts and policy experts and specialists and academics and generally talk about one thing and audience gets to know him, gets to trust him, gets to like him, and then you come on and share this. I think it's great. I think people trust your experience and
so your audience needs to know that I would never do this with anybody I didn't trust with.
Well, yeah.
I would trust my children with you. That's
the odd thing is I know you've got you're doing a podcast with Seb Gorka after this, so I guess that's not going to be about this.
I do have to go.
I'm joking. He's not doing that. Yes,
I'm not doing that. But I am late for my dinner that Lynn is prepared.
Thank you very much.
I want to tease. Well, hold on. I want to tease one thing.
Okay.
The next time we talk.
Okay.
I do want to say that Neil Gorsuch and Sam Alito absolutely wrote an opinion a couple of days ago in dissent. Thank God it was in dissent, that effectively said, and I'll explain this next time we talk, effectively said that the freedom of religious objectors to getting vaccinated is more important than people dying. Not those people dying, other people dying. He effectively said that. New York has a law that healthcare workers have to get vaccinated. I think that's a great law, unless you have a medical exemption. And
there are very few.
I don't want anybody, though, to get vaccinated if it's going to kill them or whatever, obviously.
Well, that's very, very rare. Yeah.
Exactly. But he said because they allowed medical exemptions, they have to allow a religious exemption. I want people to think about how stupid, how totalitarian that is, how absurd that is, how insane that is, coming from a lawyer with no public policy experience, no medical experience, nothing.
How does one decide legally if something qualifies as a religious exemption? If I say, listen, my God is Zorlon.
I got to go, Pete. Let's have that conversation.
From Planet Tree.
Right.
Eric Segall, everybody.
The spaghetti monster. There's actually a religion for that, and we'll talk about that next time. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, bye.
Take care. All right. I got to go, Pete. Thanks.
Bye.
I hope that worked.
It was great. Yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
Okay, bud. I'll talk to you later.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. How about something a little bit different with Eric Segall? I hope you laughed and enjoyed it and felt like that was kind of a PSA, especially for guys and even for your marriage. Take care of each other in sickness and in health. I love Lynn, his wife, and she's hilarious. So that was great. I hope you enjoyed it. And thank you to all of my guests today, all three of my guests today. Chabeli Carrazana for the first time. It was really great. And follow her on Twitter as well as Dr. Jason Johnson. Let him know that you heard him here. Today's sponsor is Shopify.com/standup. Go open your online store and make a whole bunch of money. And thank you to everybody subscribing to the show. And thank you to everybody leaving messages as well. Let's listen to one more before I say goodbye.
Hey, Pete. My name is John Bogey. I'm from a suburb outside of Chicago. I've been listening to you since your Sirius XM days. And right away, I fell in love with your show because you are a person who truly listens to people, even if they disagree with you. And I just respect that so much, and it is a joy to listen to you. I don't agree with you on everything, but I'll tell you what, you respect everyone, and that is a huge, huge plus, especially in this day and age when people are just so disrespectful to each other. You are a role model. I love hearing your stories, and keep it up. And I'm looking forward to many more years of this wonderful podcast. Thank you, and have a great next 500 shows.
Yeah, that is John Oldie. Thank you, John. That is very thoughtful. I really appreciate it. And keep those messages coming about the 500th show and what you like about it. I can use it for promotion, of course. And it just, I think it brings our community together and helps others understand why they like the show. And it's just great. Also, use the hotline for anything you want to talk about, things you want me to share on the air. Let me know. Go to 209-STAND-UP. That's 209-782-6387. If you're not a subscriber, you don't know what you're missing. What an amazing community. We will meet on Friday night at, I think, 8. You'll get an email from me. You get an email every day with a picture of nature taken by a listener, a subscriber. You get a subscriber submit pictures. It's a great way to wake up and open up that email and see no humans, just a shot of nature from a listener who actually took it themselves and shared it from wherever they were. And it's just a fun way to start your day and a lot of other benefits as well. You're never alone if you are a stand-up member, and the show is free, but it isn't cheap, so please consider it. StandUpWithPete.com, Patreon.com/Pete Dominic. One of our favorite listeners and subscribers, a great musician, a talented artist, writer, singer, songwriter, John Carroll, taking us out right now.
We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear and all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in with other change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.